Okay, Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah. Abi Yesodis Ve'elu. These four elements, Mishtanim Zelo Zeh Tomin, change with each other continuously. L'chol yom l'chol shor mikosel loy kol gufam. Every day and every hour, some of it is not its entirety. Ketzat. What does that mean? Mitzvei oretz hakroivim min hamayim. The part the part of the earth which is next to the water changes and becomes and becomes it falls apart and becomes water. So two part of the water which is close to the wind, they change, they evaporate and become wind. So to wind which is close to fire, it changes and becomes part of the fire. Let's go down to the Peirush. The Peirush is not only that which is made up for all the four elements change, but the very elements themselves change, and the Rambam says how it takes place. And that's why the Rambam says, the part that's close to the wind, it also becomes part of the wind. So too, the wind becomes partially into the water, it becomes absorbed. And so too the water which is near the land, at times you have it becoming earth. This change is very slow, according to the time. But it never changes that everything should change completely from its basic element to be something else. Because it's impossible that one of the elements should totally disappear. Some of it changes from fire to water, and some of it vice versa. And so it would apply to between each one. And the next element. Therefore the change takes place amongst all four, and that's the way the world continues. The water evaporates, becomes wind, wind falls down, becomes rain, rain falls down the earth, and the earth becomes mud and falls into the ocean. The ocean then creates swamplands which become earth, and there's a continuous cycle. The explanation of the Rambam in the Halacha is that all of the four elements change continuously. The Rambam Pano calls these changes Shehem Lovim Zeh Mizeh. They borrow one from the other. We can infer from the language of the Rambam that at the beginning he said the changes that have from below to above. First, the earth falls apart, the water dilutes, the ruach. Then he talks about the ruach, which becomes part of the fire. All of them are names for what we see. When the shinui is from above to below, Rambam says a language of gathering. The Aish gathers, the Ruach gathers. We have to understand what does it mean miskanes. The answer is, since the elements are one above the other, each one according to their heaviness, the offer is the most heaviest. It's at the bottom, afterwards water, and then wind, and then fire. Therefore, when the heavy one changes to be something that is lighter, it is more refined and thinner, less heavy, and less weighty. And therefore the Rambam writes that the earth comes apart, and the mayim evaporates, and the ruach becomes part of the fire. All of them languages which discussed the very lightness of the item. But when the reverse is true, that we're going from the lighter to the heavier, that which is lighter becomes heavy. There we use the Rambam is kanes. It means it gathers to itself something and therefore becomes heavier. The fire gathers and becomes part of the wind. The wind gathers and becomes more heavy and becomes water. And then the water gathers and becomes earth. Every change of these elements and how they make up is found in the Zohar and Parshas Va'era. There it explains the four elements, that they are so as to speak, the patriarchs of the entire world. And all the foundations, you see their strength through earth. Just we see with our own eyes that the earth brings forth things that grow. Some of them are based upon fire. It says we make it to a shomesh, from the tfuas, which comes from the sun, which is fire. Then Hilchos Yesodei HaTorah, which are those things which are generated from water, which are wet and cold. Megid ger shiur, and from them there are Hilchos HaRuach, like mushrooms and other fungi that come from the ear. The Rav Yitzchak Mivoloshin explained all these individual aspects when in his editing of his comments on Sefer Nefesh HaChaim to his father, the Rae Gann Family. There's another remez, a hint in the Torah about these four bases. We find the Zohar Kodesh on the posting in Bereshis Malach Elikim Olam v'Yodem Boy, that the angels of heaven go up and down. They go up. Olam is two. That's the fire and the wind. Yodem two, and the two that go down, which is water and earth. That their nature is to go down. We're learning Beridal Halacha Vav and Zion. So the Rambam says, "V'shinu zeh." This change, Yeh b'sfivas hagalgal, has to do with the cycle of the spheres, and that's why it changes. And misfivosoi ischavu amaton, and from when it goes through its cycle, they will gather together. And you will have from it the elements that make up man, the nefesh, and soul, and spirit, v'chayo, and something that lives, animals, semach, vegetation, even, stone, mateches, and also metal. And God gives each of these elements, these items, something that is correct for it, to a malach hasiri, which is at the 10th level, which is shehu atzura nikras ishim. We learned earlier in Perek Beis Halacha Zayin that is the lowest level, which comes closest to man. Here the Rambam tells us that every one of God's creations in the earth has a mirror image through the malach, which is called ishim. That's Vov. Now we go to the Rambam, Zayin lo'olam einat roya goylam b'lo tzura. And the Rambam says you never see an element without a form, or a form without an element. But rather the heart of a person who mechalek, he separates that which he sees with his knowledge, and he knows that he's made up of two things. It's true, the eye never sees everything together, because the spirit within the person is something that is not visible, but the heart knows that everything that's created is also from the element and also from its nature, but you can't see the form that it's supposed to do without the element, or vice versa. Your idea halev, and the heart knows sham gufim shegomen b'chuvim ma'ava yisoides, that there are beings that their elements are made up from 4 basic elements. And there are things that are basically their element itself, like fire. And those beings that do not have elements, and they can't be seen by the eye. They're only known through the heart. Very similar to knowing that there's a God without seeing God. As we find furthermore in Sefer Yetzirah HaKadmoin, that it says Haben v'chochma v'chocham v'bina. What does it mean? V'choin b'hem v'chakoy b'hem. The Rae Gann explains that this is the being and the form. And he explains for this how the elements go throughout the world. That it says Haben v'chochma v'choin b'hem al atzur v'chakoy b'hem al achoyma. So he says that these are all discussing that Machon Nesher is to check regarding the shape. Machon is the elements. And just like a son finds itself from the strength of his father and mother, the Gemara continues to say that the hidden points of Torah, and we brought his words just to complete the understanding of the words of the Rambam according to their roots. Also in these portions, the Baal HaLeshem is in Sefer Leshem Shloi V'Achlomo, and if somebody wants to become wiser, should seek it out over there.